The US is sending senior officials to Saudi Arabia to hold talks with Russia about ending the war in Ukraine. Ukraine wasn't invited, so there's a breakaway group now involving Ukraine, and that involves the Europeans. This meeting is going to be held in Paris. So we've got two sets of storylines at the moment. That's the first step, but perhaps it all comes together after that.
For 3 years, the war in Ukraine has pitched Russia against the West, a coalition of Europe and America. But now, suddenly, old loyalties seem to be fraying before our eyes.
We are very thankful for American support.
This was Volodymyr Zelensky meeting the American Secretary of State Marco Rubio and the Vice President J.D. Vance a couple of days ago, worried that the US is now unilaterally setting up peace talks with Russia. The Ukrainian leader adamant that his nation cannot be excluded from discussions about its own future.
I will never accept any decisions between the United States and Russia about Ukraine. There is no any leader in the world who can really make a deal with Putin without us, about us.
The idea of Trump and Putin forging closer ties troubles many. Among them, plenty of these European leaders now about to hold a hastily arranged get-together in Paris, trying to make sense of this rapidly changing world order. At the forefront, Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron. Britain and France have always seen themselves as America's strongest allies in Europe, but both now pushing back against Washington, insistent that peace talks must include Ukraine.
We all desperately want the war to end. I think it's clear for that to be a durable peace, Ukraine has to be at the table, has to be part of that agreement. We believe Ukraine is on an irreversible path to NATO membership.
America doesn't agree, insisting that Ukraine should not join NATO, that European countries should spend more on defence, just as the US pulls away from the continent. And for some, that is a very worrying picture of the future. As Europe ponders its next step, Trump's team acts. Rubio has arrived in the Middle East. He's in Israel now, and he'll then go to Saudi Arabia to start the talks with Russia. It is divisive diplomacy hosted in a volatile region. Adam Parsons, Sky News.
And an update to that, Donald Trump commented on this in the last hour.
No, I think he wants to stop. That was my question to him. Because if he's going to go on, that would have been a big problem for us. And that would have caused me a big problem, because you just can't let that happen. I think he wants to end it, and they want to end it fast. Both of them. And Zelensky wants to end it too.
Joe Siracusa joins us now for his thoughts on this. Joe, Volodymyr Zelensky wasn't at all happy about this meeting that's taking place in Saudi Arabia involving the Americans and the Russians. So they've now got this breakaway group involving the French and the Brits that'll be held in Paris. Is it just a first step, though? Eventually, do they all come together? Because, I mean, ultimately, you can't have a negotiation without Ukraine at the table.
Oh, Ukraine will come in later. Pete, when the Americans sit down with the Russians, Saudi Arabia, Ukraine is one of the issues. They're resetting the button here. What Trump is saying is that I want to deal with Russia. Russia's part of Europe. We got to get rid of this. And as you can see, over the last couple of days, if you've been watching the Munich Security Conference, Europe and NATO are nothing without the United States. These guys are paralyzed. And I'm amazed. There are 448 million Europeans, 340 million Americans, and 149 Russians. I mean, who's afraid of whom here? I mean, the Europeans, of course, are just dependent on the United States for leadership. They haven't paid their bills since I was a kid, and they've been free riding. And a couple Americans come along, the Secretary of Defense and the Vice President, and they read them the Riot Act in the small print, and they don't know what to do with it. And one final thing here about the British Prime Minister. The British have lost their cachet in Europe when with Brexit. I don't think Europeans trust Britain to go to war with them for any reason under any circumstances.
Well,
so,
I mean, isn't that the same for the French? Because, because Macron's on the nose, and then the Germans, well, there's probably going to be a change of government next weekend.
Yeah, the only person who's going to be left over here in Europe is Vladimir Putin. He just keeps going on and on. I mean, the rest of these people will be gone. But look, this is not the beginning of the end for NATO. I mean, NATO has been on the ropes since 1991 when they didn't have a particular mission, when they decided to bring in all the former Soviet republics into NATO, which was a terrible mistake. So I think NATO is scrambling here. And of course, you know, I've been arguing for years, NATO's been looking for something to do. It has to. You know, it has buildings, uniforms, medical programs, pensions. You know, NATO is a business, and they don't like what the Americans are saying because they do not want to pony up any more money.
No, Trump calling him out. All right, we'll leave it there, Joe. Good to see you as always. Chat again soon.
Thank you.